Focus. Ideate. Innovate. Enable. ICICI Lombard and CNBC TV18 present India Risk Management Awards, honoring the new age risk management practitioners.
India Risk Management Awards is back with its 7th edition. This year, the India Risk Management Awards went completely virtual for the first time. Against the backdrop of the COVID-19 pandemic, with businesses going digital, there hasn't been a better time to honor businesses and leaders who have put in place effective risk strategies to mitigate against new age and emerging risks. Therefore, the theme of ICICI Lombard and CNBC TV18 present India Risk Management Awards 2021 is honoring the new age risk management practitioners. With the highest nominations ever received and the introduction of a separate jury to judge the mid-cap companies, the India Risk Management Awards 2021 kicked off with a panel discussion on the learnings for leaders and risk managers from the pandemic and the way forward for businesses.
Hello and welcome to this special discussion on risk management during COVID times. And my eminent panel are the jury members of the India Risk Management Awards, which CNBC TV18 holds every year. The Risk Management Awards are anyway one of our more prestigious awards because it calls and estimates one of the most difficult and most intricate faculties of corporate management, risk management. This faculty was heightened in its importance in the year 2020 because of this 1 in 100-year pandemic that hit the country. It called upon the best skills of financial management, human relations management, production management, indeed, every aspect of management. So without much ado, let me introduce my panel. I have with me Mr. Mohandas Pai, formerly of Infosys and now, of course, fathering so many startups. Mr. V. Ramakrishnan, the CFO of Tata Consultancy Services, and Mr. Ramesh Swaminathan of Lupin. He heads finance over there. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you.
Mr. Pai, let me start with you since you have the experience of, staid, experienced companies like Infosys and the many startups. What has COVID done to risk management? Has it made risk management the most important department in the corporate pantheon?
Well, Lata, I must say that, in the COVID era, risk management has become the core of business because it's all about existence, survival. When COVID happened, what did you see? The world shut down. Everything shut down. There were no cash flows. People start paying. People start moving. People start selling. There's a total shutdown. Never seen it in all our lives. Never even thought it could happen. Second, there were no liquidity in the marketplace for some time because, the banks were not lending. They were in trouble. Third, the global supply chain went very bonkers, right? China shut down in February, March, exposed the fragility of the global supply chain. Then the global supply chain had to scamper because everybody was linked together and the world worked on logistics and that was not there. And next, suddenly digital became very important. All these people who had a digital layer on their business could do things which they could not do otherwise. And human habits change, consumer habits change. When consumer habits change, if you're not there, you are exposed to risk. And lastly, it brought to bear the importance of liquidity. Now, Ramkrishna is here, TCS, Infosys, Wipro, everybody. We've been talking about liquidity from 94. You remember, we always said we should have enough cash in the balance sheet to meet 1 year's expenditure without earning a single penny. And then all of us have enough cash in the balance sheet. And we never thought as CFOs and managers that we'll ever need that. Now we actually, we needed that money and that gave us great comfort. And because we had that money, we grew. So I think COVID has demonstrated the need for liquidity, the need to go on a survival mode, the need to reconfigure a business, the need to have people work from home. The IT industry had 95% people to work from home, and the need for the government to pump in liquidity at the right time. So what are the response of regulators and government? Pump in liquidity because it showed the important liquidity. So I agree with you. COVID, a once in a 100-year event, has demonstrated that got enterprise risk management is the core of existence. If you want to survive, you better put it on.
Okay. I'm fortunate that I have with me two people who have been both positively impacted by this pandemic as well. The pharmaceutical industry, whose importance we suddenly realized was paramount, and the technology sector, the infotech sector, which again came to the rescue and allowed many industries to work from home. Let me come to you, Mr. Ramakrishnan. Initially, this was a risk, having to adjust to the new reality. But what will stay in terms of what was learned during the pandemic?
Now, I think obviously the adaptability and agility, the importance of it has increased, right? Because if you take the classical VUCA, the uncertainty factor was huge. I mean, when the lockdowns happened, you don't know whether it is going to last 1 week, 1 month, 3 months. How severe is it going to be? So many things, right? And immediately organizations across sectors started adapting to that. It's not just a survival, but it's also a question of that responding immediately, then trying to recover, and then many sectors are into the revival also. So that agility, I think, is not going to go away, and the importance of that. The other factor is, I think, the whole trust quotient has increased, right? For instance, from as long as we remember, the office or a workspace as a function, you always had people in the office. You had, so much so that even supervisors wanted line of sight with their subordinates, etc. Right? And paper. Suddenly, all that went, and people were working from so many remote locations across sectors. And how did you do that? You trusted everyone to do what they have to do, and I think it really worked. So I think that trust factor is also something which is a huge benefit from this. And I believe that's something which will get sustained going forward as well.
Both are great points that you bring home, Mr. Ramakrishnan. Agility as well, to suddenly spring into action in the face of something unknown. Maybe organizations will have to find a way of institutionalizing that capability. But Ramesh, what I'm trying to get at is, how will the approach to risk itself change? Will companies change in the sense, keep more inventory, keep more cash, as Mr. Pai was alluding? Will these be permanent changes in their behavior?
I would imagine, yes, in some ways. You would actually be prepared, having faced it. You would actually be, you've seen it before, so to the extent you would obviously see it differently going forward. So contingent planning, scenario planning, risk mitigation, plans, all of those would be potentially be issues that you'd be confronted with, and plan for the future also. The way you would actually do your, and it actually opens up a different way of actually promoting things to various people. The way you actually approach your channel partners, the way you actually prescribe, get your products to be known to the doctors or others who consume it and the like. So there is going to be changes throughout, and actually means embracing a lot more technology, using in fact data to actually plan out your future and chalk out a very different course of action.
Okay. Now let me come to the human element. For the first time, we did not see our colleagues for months on end. Of course, meeting over a webinar was possible, but that was not the same as having a community at work. Mr. Pai, how would you assess the impact on HR management? Was it,
I think it had
positive or negative? Yeah.
Well, it had a tremendous impact on HR management, because suddenly people were not there. We had to use technology. I think in the first 15, 30 days, there was excitement because you had the freedom, you could work from home, it was very new. And then I think fatigue set in. Fatigue has set in. There are mental health issues, because remember, we are all social creatures. Now, for younger people, socialization is extremely important. You want to chat with people, you want to move, you have high energy, you want to go out to a cup of coffee for a party. All that went away. And since many of them stay alone, there was a big mental health issue. And I think they reached out, and HR came to the rescue and did well. And for young couples who have a child, there's a bigger issue of home management. Like I said, Rita, I think HR produced very well. And the third was for senior people. Senior people were quite comfortable staying at home, and they like Ramkrishnan said, they got over the trust issue, and they were quite happy because it suited the need. They could stay if they had a bigger house. They were possibly empty nesters, and they were quite comfortable. They didn't have to commute. Stress levels are down. It impacted different people differently. I think HR came to the rescue. And the good thing is, Lata, despite what we talk about job losses in the formal sector, they were not good job losses. Everybody came together. The happy thing is people cut costs. People cut compensation for senior people. People stuck together. Many people are not let off. And in the startup industry, you'll be very shocked. I thought there'll be a mortality of 25%. There's only a mortality of 5 to 6% because all these young people came together, cut their salary, cut their costs, cut fixed costs, went on to the digital mode, kept people together. The response has been unbelievable. I think everybody has grown up 8-10 years and have become better managers, better everywhere. In crisis, there are 3 things very important. One is leadership. Second is people. Third are processes. Good leadership, good handholding of people and supporting them in time of need, and processes will allow you to survive and grow. I think HR played a very, very critical role. They did extremely well, maybe 95-98% of the cases.
Ramesh, you can hear me. My question was that did we digitize in a hurry? We had to. And therefore, are all our systems vulnerable to hacking or any other kind of cyber-related risks?
No, I'll answer your question in 2 parts. In terms of the digital roadmap, everybody was conscious of the fact that they had to digitize in order to make themselves a lot more efficient, a lot more effective, and compete with, in fact, the intensity of competition being what it is. And to that extent, this roadmap actually started quite some time ago. But this is expedited in recent times because of the very fact that a lot of people are actually working from home, using technology to access systems at office and the like, and getting work done also. You would not have envisaged a time when you actually had to do a physical verification, so to speak, from home. So you use drones and a host of other technologies to get that done. And with the advent of technology also came a lot of risk. So you're actually doing a lot more emailing, accessing systems from home and the like. And it was not merely the top management. It was, starting from the lowest worker to the highest. And to the extent that the quantum of work that is being done, the quantum of mails being exchanged, the access to systems, etc., obviously made us a lot more vulnerable. So if data was indeed the most important, is the next big engine, so to speak, obviously the kind of risks associated with actually accessing that also is going to be much higher. Yes, there is going to be a lot more impetus on technology. But there is, of course, an imperative to actually take your systems, your cybersecurity systems, to a very different level. But it's again going to be a continuous evolution. So you'd never be in a situation to say that you are safe because the hackers are always ahead of you. So we need to invest ahead of the curve, not to stay where we are on this front.
Okay. Similar question to you, Mr. Mohandas Pai. Is this one big vulnerability for the corporate sector?
Bigger issue is when people work from home, the network expands. Vulnerability goes to the home of every single individual. That's why I compliment the IT industry, who took 95% of the people to home within about 15 days, put in security measures, put in everything else. And more than anything else, they allowed people to come through their network to the client's network all across the world. And I think cybersecurity is going to remain the number one priority for everybody for safety in the next 2 or 3 years till it becomes more robust.
Okay. Yes. We have to. Once the human force is vaccinated, we have to start inoculating or vaccinating our digital systems as well. Gentlemen, please hold on. I need to take a commercial break. I'm back in a jiffy, and I have some questions on HR in particular. Back in a jiffy.
ICICI Lombard and CNBC TV18 present India Risk Management Awards, honoring the new age risk management practitioners. ICICI Lombard and CNBC TV18 present India Risk Management Awards, honoring the new age risk management practitioners.
Welcome back to this special discussion on how pandemic has changed risk management for corporate India. I've been speaking with Mohandas Pai, V. Ramakrishnan, and Ramesh Swaminathan. Well, Mr. Pai, I wanted to ask you now, how does HR tackle leave hereafter, and how does it tackle work-life balance?
Well, Lata, first of all, the concept of work itself has to be redefined. Work will not be a 9 to 5 hour job. Work will be a day job where you do projects, you do everything else at a location of your choice for much part of the work that has to be done. I think the concept of work has to be redefined. Second, along with the concept of work, the terms of work have to be redefined, and the terms of work include leave, including working differently, etc. Workday could be 24 into 7, because when you have a digital network, work could be asynchronous. Right now, every work is synchronous because everybody wants to be together. Work could be asynchronous. There could be storage, and you could use it very, very differently. Third, work-life balance has to be rethought. What is work-life balance? Now, work-life balance is different for different people. For younger people who don't live in bigger houses, work-life balance is very different. Younger people could work from their home in a remote place if they got a strong link. And for people in the middle, people in the senior level, work from home, and work-life balance is very, very different. And people have to redesign their lives to meet the needs of the digital world. Because even after vaccination, things come back to normal. Maybe 25, 30, 35, 40% of people could always be on rotation from home, work from anywhere. So I think we have to sit down and rework. So things are going to change very much in the next maybe 12 months. We'll come with a new norm for a large part of industry.
Okay. Well, I want to now swing the pendulum to the other side, more hypothetical perhaps, but Mr. Ramakrishnan may have an answer. We are now very much still in the penumbra of the pandemic. If we go by the Spanish instance of 1918, after 1920, no one spoke about it. I mean, we all went back and read up in history what happened. It was not taught to us in our history books like as much the World War I was taught, or Versailles Treaty was taught, or the interwar period, fascism and Nazism was taught. We were not taught about the pandemic so much. So, do you think, Mr. Ramakrishnan, this topic will be very archaic 2-3 years from now, completely forgotten?
Yeah, I don't think so. But I think the fact that within 12 months, you got a vaccine and more than one vaccine candidates, and then you have opportunities to sort of prevent spreading, as well as treatments, etc. I think that has been a phenomenal change. And the second is, I think in this pandemic, the unknowns were much less, right? So it will still be, I think, important because it will have an impact on economies. It has already had, but the answer to your question will depend on how pronounced it is and how long it is. If it is short-lived, I think it will be considered as one significant event. Of course, the loss of lives is a very sad thing.
Yeah, I guess we are still in the realm of hypothetical to be able to answer that question emphatically. Ramesh Swaminathan, a final question to you. As it is, pharma would have been the sector, I think, which has the highest percentage of its profits or its EBITDA invested in research. As a matter of risk mitigation itself, will research now draw a lot more resources, human, managerial, financial?
Yeah, it is for sure going to draw in a lot more resources, and both physical as well as financial, for sure. But there is also going to be a lot of calibration along the way. And I think given the recent emphasis on the way we actually do research itself, so potentially on the kind of products that we research and so on. So perhaps for the last several years, chemical entities, or the small molecules as they call it, has actually been on the decline, and it's been more on, in fact, bio and the like. So to the extent there would be a lot more money thrown into, in fact, into the bio research, so to speak, to actually make things much better for mankind as a whole. Added to that, I think there is going to be a lot more, instruments which are actually trying to kind of, mitigate the outcomes coming in from risky research. So you could have impact bonds, you could have crowdfunding of things, you could potentially have a lot more grants from the government. You could have public, private partnerships coming in for research of a very different kind, and so on. All of these are being tied around, and for example, the standards could very well change. The accounting standards could very well change, and say today, if you actually were to take pay for outcomes kind of a payment, a grant from an investment from a private equity, it actually has to be seen as a liability in our books. So potentially the accounting standards could be changed. So there would be a lot of changes, so potentially because of the fact that a lot of this is going to be dependent on the actual outcomes itself. So there are a lot of changes in the wake, and there's a lot of talk about these things being brought about in the next several years.
Okay. Ramesh Swaminathan, Mr. Ramakrishnan, and Mr. Mohandas Pai, thank you very much for joining me in what was a very enriching conversation. Key takeaways, the pandemic will definitely change risk management in the sense, perhaps more cash set aside for rainy day, more inventories set aside in case there are disruptions, could become managerial preoccupations. Trust as a factor has certainly risen, as Mr. Ramakrishnan pointed out. And the bigger takeaways, how you plan HR, what is leave, the definition of work and how to monitor work could change considerably, and along with it, compensation packages. Mr. Swaminathan thinks even accounting standards will change to account for how an investment in certain products may not even be seen as liability. So we see, leave and work standards changing. We see accounting standards changing, something you would not have actually related to the pandemic. But yes, even traumatic experiences, if they are short, could be forgotten. At the moment, it looks like it's going to change our behavior for the long haul. Thank you very much for joining me in this very enlightening chat.
ICICI Lombard and CNBC TV18 present India Risk Management Awards, honoring the new age risk management practitioners. Focus, ideate, innovate, enable.